So in 2005, you were chosen as the Daniel Pearl Memorial Journalism Intern. That internship was created in honor of Daniel Pearl, who was murdered in Pakistan, and while working on a story. I'm going to read a little bit from your application essay.
Oh, no. I was so young.
You were so young. But this was really wise. In a time of red states and blue states, I guess this was 2005, or you wrote it maybe in 2004. In a time of red states and blue states, a time when televised shouting matches between liberal and conservative ideologues passed for political journalism, the world could benefit from having more people like Daniel Pearl. He didn't approach controversial topics by getting quotes from the loudest and most intractable voices on each side of the debate. He approached regular people. He learned their hopes and fears and conveyed their struggles in their articles. In doing so, he gave readers fuller, deeper, and more human stories than they could ever get from the talking heads. Now, that was 2000. That was over a decade ago. How do you think journalism has changed since then, and how has technology, and in particular Facebook and Twitter, really changed even from that time when you talk about things being intractable? How has it changed over a decade?
That's a great question. It's changed so much in just the past decade. So at the time, I had in mind like CNN's Crossfire show. You remember that show was it Tucker Carlson and his name's escaping me, and this is really bad. But it was the conservative guy in the bow tie and the liberal guy, and they were sort of the stereotypes of their respective sides, and they would shout over each other, and you would never the discussion would never involve any common ground or agreement or forward progress on the issues. But what I will say is that it was intelligent and it was fact-based, and to think that was the worst we had to worry about in political media in that time now feels sort of quaint. I think social media have done wonderful, amazing things for the media and for the news and for political discourse, and they've also done horrific, awful things. And so I think it's always a mixed bag. And what we saw in this election is that at least one way of interpreting it is that Facebook, I think, in particular, has helped to really erode the public's trust in the media even further. Granted, the media has helped to erode the public's trust in the media, but really, the mainstream media today are not any worse than they ever were before, and yet public confidence in what they report is at all-time lows. And in fact, you could make the case that a lot of Donald Trump's campaign was based on a rejection of the media. It was a sort of a rebellion against the liberal elite, which he and his supporters took to include institutions like the New York Times and the Washington Post. I think Facebook has really helped to make that possible, because it used to be that you would go to the New York Times because you would go there regularly. You would be a regular reader because you trusted them, or you had grown to understand their approach to journalism, and now you will see, Facebook has sort of disaggregated the products of journalism. So instead of going to the New York Times and seeing what they have to say day in, day out, you might see a story from the New York Times pop up in your feed alongside a story from Think Progress, or one from Breitbart, or one from the Denver Guardian, which is this fake news site that circulated a viral fake story about a murder related to the Clinton email scandal right before the election. Facebook presents them all identically in your feed. I mean, the format is the same. You have no way of knowing which one to trust and which one not to trust. And so I think that there's this big furor around fake news on Facebook right now. And Mark Zuckerberg is downplaying it and saying, look, fake news probably didn't play any real role in the outcome. It's a small proportion of what you find on Facebook. And in any case, people had probably had their minds made up before they read some false story about the Pope endorsing Donald Trump. That's all probably true. And maybe to some extent, this fake news controversy is missing the bigger picture. But I will say that the fact that fake news can appear right alongside real news in your feed has I think helped to undermine the distinctions between credible news outlets that are fact-based and that have journalistic standards, and sort of fly-by-night websites that either are essentially an ideological arm of a political party, or maybe even as BuzzFeed and The Guardian and others uncovered, they might even be, one teenager in Macedonia writing fake pro-Trump stories because they go viral on Facebook and they can make money that way. And the median income in Macedonia is pretty low, and maybe writing fake news stories about U.S. politics is a better way to make money than what else is available in that small town's economy. So I think we have a situation today in the media where Facebook has expanded the diversity of media and of voices available in a good way, and it has opened the door to all sorts of new sources, new approaches to journalism. At the same time, it has made it a lot harder for us all to agree on what the news is or what the facts are, because it's different for all of us, and all of our feeds are completely different depending on our own biases and political leanings.